Walk into an automotive lab at an Indian engineering institute, and you'll likely see something like this. It's a piece of dispensable hardware, typically donated by a major original equipment manufacturer, but there's no specific project attached to it, and no embedded engineer acting as a mentor to guide the students. This is how a standard collaboration usually plays out. A company writes a check or drops off some equipment. A professor accepts it, often just to satisfy a government requirement to secure research funding, and a press release goes out celebrating the partnership. Then, both sides retreat to their separate worlds. Fast forward a year, and the company complains at an industry panel that the university didn't deliver anything useful. Meanwhile, the college complains that the company never actually engaged. The persistent wall between academia and industry was built into the rules of the game. The system was designed to produce this level of disconnect. Back in the mid-1970s, NASA created the Technology Readiness Level, or TRL. It was designed to give engineers a shared language for risk, a simple way to judge if a thruster was ready for space, or if it needed more testing. Over the decades, this framework spread globally, but in India, it morphed from a helpful measurement tool into a rigid ideology that strictly dictates how the country structures and funds research. This TRL ladder divides innovation. Basic principles, levels 1 through 3, are academia's job. Real-world deployment, levels 7 through 9, is strictly industry's. The unowned middle, levels 4 through 6, is the valley of death, where ideas collapse lacking ownership to survive. The strict division forces industry to act like a dissatisfied customer evaluating a vendor. Instead of co-developing the next phase together, companies frequently bypass the collaboration entirely, opting simply to poach the best PhD students and extract the knowledge. The standard diagnosis of the Valley of Death assumes two capable parties exist to make the handoff, but the reality is far starker. Indian industry operates overwhelmingly on a buy, not build mentality. Domestic companies have some of the lowest R&D expenditures globally, relying heavily on assembling imported subsystems rather than designing their own. This creates a devastating void for universities. Even if a lab successfully builds a viable prototype, the homegrown industry partner on the other side of the wall often lacks the technical depth to actually integrate that knowledge or mentor the project further. Look at the automotive or aerospace sectors. The global hardware-in-the-loop testing market and the platforms for embedded software are entirely dominated by foreign monopolies. The domestic industry to supply these frontier components simply does not exist. Contrast this with functional environments like Germany's precision optics sector. There, laser companies and national research institutes co-evolve. They act as early adopters for each other, creating the exact conditions required for both to advance. Current grant structures force collaboration between two parties who cannot teach each other. Bridging that gap requires growing a new domestic industry that can actually participate in frontier research. The mechanism that physically builds these walls is the General Financial Rules, or GFR. This is the bureaucratic framework governing how every rupee of public university research funding is spent. This table outlines typical research grants. The current structure allows a professor to purchase physical goods, equipment, consumables, software, and travel, but it prevents paying for knowledge. Grants won't cover engineering consulting or collaborative development to stitch disparate products into a functioning lab. To get anything built, researchers are forced into cumbersome workarounds. They have to bury complex integration costs under vague installation and commissioning line items. The margins are so slim and the paperwork so punishing that serious vendors and integrators refuse to take the work. The National Institutional Ranking Framework compounds the damage. It scores institutions based on the volume of patents filed and startups incubated, regardless of commercial survival. It rewards the mere appearance of innovation over the difficult work of building durable industrial infrastructure. When the industrial ecosystem does not exist and integration support is banned, the default alternative is the professor-entrepreneur, a technical researcher forced to spin out a company and carry the product across the valley of death alone. While these startups are the seeds of new deep tech ecosystems, relying on them to survive without institutional support or system integrators highlights a major breakdown in the pipeline. This table breaks down how global leaders like Germany and Taiwan manage the TRL system through continuous collaboration. Consider Germany's Fraunhofer institutes. 70% of their budget must be earned through industry contracts. If researchers don't bring in revenue, they lose base support. This creates a permanent productive tension, forcing continuous collaboration. Industry engineers work alongside academic researchers for years. Parallel development ensures the handoff divide never forms. For a country trying to build an industry from scratch, Taiwan offers a different variant. In the 1970s, they established the Industrial Technology Research Institute as a state-directed translation bridge. ITRI licensed foreign technology and built the mid-level process capability entirely in-house. Then they spun out companies. That public body birthed TSMC, defining the global semiconductor market. To replicate this success, India must shift the goal. We need to stop funding isolated labs that simply buy foreign boxes and start funding a centralized network of systems integration. Transplanting these institution names is useless without adopting their brutal financial discipline and integration capabilities. India must abandon the myth of the linear handoff. You cannot purchase innovation by procuring products. To cross the chasm, you have to build dedicated institutions, mandated, funded, and designed to live right in the messy middle.